Welcome back to Horrifically Well Read, Bled, and Said. We are very excited to have one of our favorite writers today, the very prolific and amazing Delilah S. Dawson. Thank you for being here.
Thanks so much for having me.
Gosh,
So,
I'm fangirling, and Adam's definitely fangirling too.
absolutely. So, it's so funny because I got to tell my students because that Scholastic catalog went home this week. And I really brightly circled both your book and Blood in the Water by Tiffany Jackson, but especially I'm like, if you guys want to read a really good book, Ride or Die was in there. And I was just so excited. And I said, guys, guess who I'm talking to tonight? So my fifth grade class is waiting to hear about our conversation.
You're going to tell them I was a monster.
Yeah.
Say,
Very scary.
well, that will make them want to read the books, though,
No, seeing it when y'all posted the Scholastic Book Fair, that's like it's such a dream. Like I was such a Scholastic kid and like seeing that writing is a very solitary thing you do at home. Then you see something like that and you're like, oh my gosh, this is real.
And it's funny because I read it something, I don't know, 4 or 5 months ago. I can't remember. It was last school year when I read it and loved it so much. And I even told my kids then, because Camp Scare and mine are in my classroom and kids love them. And I was like, just wait. She's got one coming out that your mind's gonna be blown. So I even went over to a few of my former sixth grade students that I knew had written some horror stories for me and stuff. And I showed them and I was like, tell your parents to buy you this book.
I love
It was
you're hustling.
I'm doing my best for you.
Yay, spreading the word.
Instead of slinging drugs, you're slinging books.
You know? It's
Get into this. You'd be a junkie for Delilah.
It's an honest living.
It's much cheaper too.
Exactly, So, and we're going to talk about all this stuff because you have a lot of different areas where you play in, which is exciting and makes it even more exciting to talk about. But generally speaking, where did your love for horror, if you have one, I'm assuming you do since you write it, has that always been there, or is that something that's newer? What's your history with horror?
Be real awkward if I said no, wouldn't it?
And then be done.
No, I was a weird kid who didn't really understand other kids, and I found a lot of solace in books. But that was in the 80s, and we didn't have there wasn't a middle grade or a YA section. It was kind of like what books you could. And then when I was 10, I found Stephen King, and after that I couldn't turn back. Pet Sematary was my first one, and then I found it, and then just kind of worked my way through everything.
Wow. Pet Sematary is your first one.
I mean, it was my first Stephen King when I was 10. My mom was reading it.
That's just a little bit of light reading for your first Stephen King.
Yeah, I was an advanced reader and I was a fast reader, and yeah, I mean it's like nothing else. I mean, I imagine that's kind of like,
Yeah, how do you
I read Laura Ingalls Wilder when I was a kid, and they were like, we had a quarter of a teaspoon of sugar per cake. And it's like, imagine if you gave that kid Sour Patch Kids. Like, you just can't go back to Moss Cake after Sour Patch Kids.
Well, I'm thinking of I loved reading the Boxcar Children, right?
Yep.
And then I distinctly remember being in fifth grade and I was at my best friend's house and her mom had a Kay Scarpetta, who is the Patricia Cornwell book from Potter's Field. She had it there. And I was like, oh, that looks like a cool book. She's like, oh, I'm done with it. You can read it if you want. And I wanted to be super cool because they were a huge reading family. And I was like, okay. And I bring it home and I give them I don't even understand half these words. They're so advanced. So I don't know if you had that experience with Pet Sematary that you were just yeah, everything made sense. It was good to go. I just, I didn't think I was an advanced reader, but my God, that was intense. And
a lot of forensic science in that.
I look now and I'm like, Margie, why would you have given me that book in fifth grade? What were you thinking?
I mean, I was a kid who really liked big words. Every time I found a new one, I didn't skip over it. I was like, ooh, that's a big, juicy one. I'm going to look that up in my 1960 dictionary and hold it to me forever. So I'm sure that lots of Pet Sematary, especially psychologically speaking, went over my head.
Yeah.
Just Watership Down was my favorite book in second grade. I'm sure I missed a lot of what was happening there, but you can still get enough of a layer to be, just in love with the book, even if you're not getting the full.
I was proud of myself for reading the one in the middle is a green kangaroo in third grade. She's reading Water. That's so cool though. So everything, story, narrative, words, language, all of it became just it was your thing, obviously, from the get-go.
But yeah, I still have lots of books from my childhood that I've just carried with me over the years.
Oh, that's a lovely tome you have there. Yes, that was my first grade favorite.
It's like the All Creatures Great and Small series about like the country vet,
Yeah.
where they're like, then he stuck his arm into the cow's anus and hooked the calf around the nose and yanked it out with the wagon. And I'm like, cool, that sounds interesting. So like I was all in for the weird, dark, strange adult stuff, I guess.
And thank God you were, because
Yeah.
now we have these wonderful things from you.
So, and when we think about, because, you do the middle grade, even, kind of going into YA, I feel like Midnight at the Houdini is kind of like that's kind of straddling line of middle grade and YA. And then obviously adult books. Do you sit down and say, like, what do I feel like? What did I do last? I'm going to do something different.
Yeah.
How do you figure out what the next story kind of.
I ask my agent what I am contractually forbidden from doing, and then I try to find an open bit of runway.
Troublemaker. I love it.
That's so
Well, it's not a
funny.
troublemaker. It's that every time you sign a literary contract with a traditional publisher, they say, okay, well, if you sell us adult fiction, you cannot sell full length adult fiction to anyone else. So that kind
Really?
of cuts off my choices. So it's like once I have a YA and middle grade and adult sold, that's why I'm writing horror novellas, because we realized that they all said full length, so we could write a shorter
Perfect.
length. And then, I try to fill in the cracks with IP. I write faster than traditional publishing
Yeah.
would prefer to support.
Yeah.
So
And that's what I
I
was
have to
wondering.
do
So, like,
sideways.
I was talking to some other people and they're saying, when you are traditionally published between, the time period between when you've written it, sent it off, and when it actually exists is usually can be a long period of time depending on what it is and all that kind of stuff. So, like this year, when you have so much coming out, and it seems, to us, it's like, wow, you wrote all this in 1 year. Is that really not the case? Or is it just, that is how it went?
Write 4 or 5 books a year, but, takes maybe an IP book would be the fastest. An IP book can come out within a year, but
Hmm.
most traditional publishing books are 1 to 3 years with more like a year and a half, 2 years once the book is written average.
Hmm.
So it's and of course, between those times, we edit and copy edit and go over lots and lots of things. So by the time the book comes out, I have forgotten most of it.
Nice.
That's funny.
Okay. So, like, it's like a fresh read for you too.
It is. I remember, scenes and like the heartstrings of the book, but if you said name every character and write or die right now, I'd be like,
Yeah. Yeah. That's awesome. That's a really cool perspective, because it sounds like you, and don't let me put words in your mouth, but it sounds like you almost like immerse yourself as you're doing it, and it's your world building and doing all that, but then kind of have to like pull out all the way so that you can go into your next world building. So it's like you forget some of it, or like have to,
oh yeah, absolutely.
like offload.
Yeah, I mean, there's no reason on earth for me to remember the name of the side characters in Wicked as She Wants. Like, there is no benefit to me as a human
Yeah.
being,
Yeah.
an animal moving through this world, to me knowing that's my Bane's like, cool, we're done here.
Yeah. Well, I really enjoy the novellas. So we were at Books and Brews this summer, and I was like, we were just all sitting around, like talking about like what are some of our favorite books, and we were making a new friend group with Alex and Dave. Shout out to Alex and Dave that are all are loyal listeners. But I was like, what should I read? And Dave's like, oh, you gotta read Guillotine by Delilah Dawson. I was like, oh, okay. He's like, that's just the best book. And so I was like, okay. So I came back from Books and Brews and I read it and was immediately like enamored and obsessed. I don't know what I thought it was going to be, but it was even more than everything I thought it could be. So I know you have other things coming up, but I just want to make sure to touch on this because I feel like it's, someone says your name and they say Guillotine or Bloom. They're like, oh, it's so good. It's so good. And it's like difficult to even find the words as to why it's so good, but you get to know people that you trust and you're like, and the energy they're conveying and you're like, okay, I'll give it a try. Or like, okay, I really got to check this out. So I just couldn't stop thinking about Guillotine because I guess I didn't expect it to have like life lessons in it for me that it did. And I would love to share some of those with like our listeners, but just maybe you didn't realize you were packing them with life lessons.
Main life lessons are listen to your gut and watch out for red flags.
Yeah. I
Because
think,
all the people in my stories have to convince themselves like, nah, this will be fine.
yeah. So So the main character is essentially like, she's aspiring to be like in this fashion world and wants to really like work with like couture items, and eventually after, and like the setting that you have is kind of like they're on this very exclusive, very private island where all of her devices and everything are taken, and a lot of crazy things ensue, and we can talk about that then. But it's it's so horrendous what happens, but she's exposed to just the ultra filthy rich, like the richest of the rich, like the top 1%ers sort of thing. And by the time you get to the end of the book, she's like, she looks at fashion in a way that she's disgusted. Like she sees every bead that was sewed on was probably by some kind of underpaid worker. And who are these people that in the attitudes and the behaviors? And she's like, why would I ever want to design clothes for people like this? And it just hit me in a way of when you're having, recently left the corporate world. Who knows if I'm going back or not? But sometimes you're just like, doing certain things because you feel like you're supposed to do it. And it was just kind of like seeing like how she changed and was like, I don't want to do this anymore. I'm still talented. I still have all these things, but I want to use my talents for something that for people that will appreciate it. And I'm not saying golfers aren't good people. Okay. And I'm not saying corporate life isn't good. I'm just saying that sometimes when you're doing things for so long and you have such an idea of what your life is or what you're supposed to be doing, and then you go ahead and you have some type of an experience or a shift or a change in any capacity, right? It could be a death or a move or anything, and you're just like, that's not for me anymore. And it's like all of a sudden the rose colored glasses come off. And that's kind of what it felt like. It hit me in the feels of like, it's okay to change your mind and it's okay to go back, and it's okay to just be like, that doesn't fit me anymore.
Yeah, I think it's also okay to say, like, if you've done really well, it's okay to have a yacht. You can use a yacht. You can be on one yacht at a time. Maybe you don't need 8 yachts and a big yacht that carries your 8 smaller yachts, but one yacht is okay if you are a happy person enjoying it with your family that you love and support.
It wasn't about
It's
them.
the excess is
Yeah.
that's what inspired it. Was a BuzzFeed article about, this working for the mega rich, and this girl was saying,
Well,
I worked for this family that had a yacht that carried all their yachts, and their neighbor got a yacht that carried the yachts that carried the smaller
my
yachts. And I was
God.
like, anyone who has more than one yacht
Yeah.
needs to go to this island.
I think it was for me, it wasn't like, it was like, look, anybody who's worked hard and they have money like that, that's fine. But it was the way that they treated, like, just like they didn't even say thank you,
No.
to anything. Like it was below them. And I don't want to get into like, I don't want to give away the surprise or whatever, but I mean, it's like everyone that works for them just is considered to be like this worker and they don't deserve anything, and it just that I don't know. I think appreciation and gratitude means a lot, right? If you have a lot, you should be willing to give back a lot, and that's fine. Enjoy your yacht, but at least be somewhat grateful. And it just comes across as like, yeah, most likely they're not going to be.
There's another horror book called Tiny Threads by Lillian Rivera that
Okay.
has some similar tones. It's about a fashion designer who moves to
Oh,
work with a very famous fashion designer in LA and kind of sees how the sausage is made, to say in a specific way. But yeah, if you are intrigued by the thoughts of,
I
you
am.
know, couture fashion and how it intersects with
Yeah.
horror and generational trauma, Tiny Threads might be a good
I
book for you.
I will absolutely, and I will report back to you because that sounds incredible. And then I was thinking of you too because it was just so we're at right now when we're recording, we're at the beginning of September, and there was this issue on the internet on like TikTok I was watching the other day where there's this person of color, this male who's just sitting on a live and he's showing off like Pokemon cards and whatever. And some rando dude comes into the live and starts saying all these racial slurs at him. So this man comes back on and makes this other video and he's like, oh yeah, I found out who you are. I found out where you live. I found out what you do for your job. You're a military person. He's like, I know that your daughter's birthday is next week. And I know this and I know this. And I know they have a zero tolerance policy. And it's like zooming in on his face. And he's like, there's no amount of money. There's nothing you could pay me. There's nothing you could say to me that would change my mind and not turn it. And I was like, this is like straight out of Guillotine, where it's like, I don't want money. That's not what I'm here for. It's like the disrespect and what you've done. It's like, you're going to take this. And it was so awesome. It was like, he's like, and when all this happens to you, when you lose your job, he's like, you're going to remember my name. And it was like, oh, good job. And he's like, you probably think because I'm just this person of color showing Pokemon cards that I wouldn't do something like this. And it was just, I love that theme in your book where it was just like, no, you can't pay me off. With the things and the humiliation and the shame that has happened as these servants, it doesn't matter. $1 million, $1 billion doesn't matter to me. And I just was like, to see that book theme happen in real life, I was like, oh, hell yeah, I loved it.
It was very cathartic.
Like, every kill was amazing. I just want you to know that.
Yeah, I think that there's very much, and especially right now, more than maybe other times in history, that we are very excited, and it is a very cathartic thing to see bad people in power getting what they deserve, right?
You mean like the Luigi Mangione that everyone's like, well,
I wasn't gonna go there, but yes.
look, that's my role in this podcast is to go the places that you either don't want me
My
to.
eyes go very wide.
Yeah. But I love it. And then, you have Bloom too, which is such a, favorite. And then like Ride or Die. So, and House of Idols coming out.
Yeah,
So,
well, that's funny because what you said there was kind of when you said, if you have this money and all these things, like, it's not about, okay, you can have a yacht, but it's the excess, right? And it's funny because, like, I feel almost like with House of Idol, you ruined the other side now, where it's like
sorry.
they have the money, and it's like, at least initially, it seems like these very wealthy people are doing exactly what you would want them to do, right? Which is give back, give these artists a place to just be able to create without worrying. And then you're like, no, this is bad too.
Yeah. She's like, I'm not going to let this reader get set. There is no comfort zone here.
So I absolutely love, like, any kind of theme of someone going to a place that seems like this utopia and slowly
Yes.
realizing
Oh, yeah.
what's going on here. And, like, I love the way that you sort of brought in hero worship with the fact that it's this band, all of these different things. Was you said that was an article that kind of brought Guillotine to life. What was the seed for House of Idol?
Oddly enough, it was another BuzzFeed article. It was just one that had a picture of Jared Leto in white robes and sunglasses walking
God.
barefoot down a beach, leading a group of white people dressed all in white clothes. And I was like, how did Jordan Catalano win all these Oscars and Grammys and become a billionaire cult leader? And then I was like, I'm going to answer that question.
Oh
Oh,
my, that's so funny.
my.
And I love that it's like this wealthy white man dressed all in white leading all these other white people, but it's like positioned as this, they're doing this really wonderful thing for almost society, right? Like, and they kind of get the power, like the feeling out of this sort of false sense of giving back. And is that something that, but aside from like that image, like, is that something that you've experienced, or found that sort of hypocrisy?
Well, I think that we're in a place where artists are it goes beyond not being appreciated or valued to the point where, they're saying that robots and machines can do our jobs by
Right.
regurgitating our own work back. If you just describe creatively enough how to do it, writers aren't having contracts renewed, artists are having trouble selling with the tariffs, they're having to shut down their stores. And when you think about how things used to be, like rich people in England would build a little folly in back of their manse and they would hire a hermit or an artist to just kind of live there and make art and show up every now and then and recite poetry or do a sculpture or a picture. You think when you have $1 billion, all it takes is like $30,000 to support somebody for a year in a tiny home.
Yeah.
Billionaires and even millionaires could very easily fund artist retreats like this and help lift people, like, and it wouldn't even be the skin off their nose, like they wouldn't even notice it, it would just be tax deductible, and you're like, why aren't they doing this? And I think that's the only reason. I mean, I had to put Angelina into a position where she had no other
Hmm.
options, but also I think basically any artist is like, yeah, that would be my dream, and I don't see why more millionaires and billionaires aren't doing that.
Yeah, because really it would just be like, when you think about it, it would just make them look so good, and like they're bringing all of this, art and great things in the world. I mean, it's essentially a Thomas Edison situation where,
Well, doesn't
he
that
didn't actually do a lot of the things that he gets credit for, but he built the area and the, things, and there's bad things about that, but like it seems like it would be a win-win for these people, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's outlined in the book that they don't take rights to anything you do. They're
Mhm.
basically just trying to lift you up. And so, on
Right.
one level, for most of the people at this retreat, for 85 to 90% of people, this is a godsend that's going to change their life. There's
Right.
just a couple people that are going to have a real bad time, which it gets very midsummery in that case, where almost anything that seems, look at this utopia where we can all live and be happy. There's going to be you got to have a blood sacrifice in Joe versus Volcano, that thing.
Right.
Blood sacrifice.
Yeah, and it becomes that, that question of what is worth it, what is okay, like what, I always think of, I don't know if you've ever seen Hot Fuzz, but the greater good,
Yeah,
where
it's the best.
it's like that thing where, it almost ventures into folk horror territory there of that kind of thing. And I just found it to be so interesting, that dynamic. And then in the middle of that, having a character that's very, very much initially, amazed by it, but like at her heart, she's very punk rock and like, I'm going to question this and I'm not going to just say yes to things after a certain time. And I just love that dynamic of having that powerful person being like, let's see what's really going on here kind of thing. So that was really cool.
The only person I can think of that does some of that philanthropic is that I guess it's Jeff Bezos' first wife, that Mackenzie Scott. I know our particular area here got like a massive
Educational
grant,
stuff.
and it
Yeah.
was like something for the Community Progress Council and things like that. And she kind of, I think, has a whole team that like researches and like drops things on, but
It's like
but
spite.
it is for tax write off and things
Yeah.
like yeah.
It feels like spite philanthropy
Sure.
very much behind
Whatever, I'll take it.
when it's aimed at Bezos, at least.
Well, if it helps to help the community.
Yes. So in my post, I'm going to seg you a little bit into Ride or Die here. In my post talking about how much I love this book, and it's no secret how much I love this book, that both One Day at Horrorland and The Beast both by R.L. Stein, incredibly formative books to me. Like those were books that were like, this is why I read, this is why I would want to write. All that. Were you fans of those too, or what made you want to do the amusement park setting besides it just being awesome?
I don't know how I managed to do so, but I didn't actually get into R.L. Stein or Goosebumps or Dean Koontz
Hmm.
as a kid. I missed Flowers of the Attic completely. I
No.
guess I just jumped from Ghost Cat directly into Stephen King, and then
Okay.
my other big favorite that I should not have been reading at that age was Jean Owl's Earth's Children, that starts with Clan of the Cave Bear, where
Oh,
Clan of the
yeah.
Cave Bear is a very literary
Hmm.
work with amazing anthropological and sociological and biographical thoughts. And
Yeah.
then the second book is just like straight up Mary Sue Neanderthal horse porn.
Well,
So those were like my two
That's
my
so
two
funny.
things.
I just always remember my parents had Clan of the Cave Bear, and that cover and the art on it, just I always wanted to read it, and then I would read like a page or two, and I was like, I don't get it.
Yeah, most kids are not explained to me ad nauseum how to process cattails into food, but I was here for it. Yeah, so it's like I've met Arlstein and he is amazing. Like he's such a good dude. He's so pleasant to talk to at dinner. Like quintessential new. I don't know. It was so fun. But yeah, at the time, I would go to B Dalton down the street with like
Dalton.
$5, and
Yeah.
Yeah.
it's like I had to get in and get out before my parents got bored, or I had to go to my school library and if five children and it was there, I would get very excited. Like it's just the options kind of weren't there. It was like what you found in the library and the time that you had there. And I'm just gonna say it, like kids weren't super nice. Like the librarians weren't super nice to kids in
Oh,
like the 80s and the early 90s. Like none of them were like, here's your section. Let me
Yep.
curate. Let me help you. Here's the teen room. They were like, be quiet. Why are you here? Where are your
Yeah.
parents? So
yeah.
it was a very
Those
Green
cliches
Beret ops
exist.
getting books.
Those
Yeah.
cliches exist for a reason,
It's
right?
the
Yeah.
honest to God truth. And that's why Delilah, we say like our podcast is brought to you by Loud and Library Studios, which is our like LLC, because we feel that you should be loud in the library. You
Uh-huh.
should share about the excitement of things. And that really came from me thinking about elementary school librarians where I was like scared to death to talk and it was quiet, and it's like, I think it would have enhanced my time. And now we've interviewed some of these really cool librarians. And I feel like
Different.
it's so different. It's like,
Yeah, all the ones
God,
that
I
I
want
have
to be a
connected with
librarian.
Midnight at the Houdini was a Florida Teen Reads book, and so I got to go to, like, the Florida Librarian Conference and visit some schools, and it was like, oh my gosh, what a gift these librarians
Mhm.
and are to students and how fierce they are in defense of the books and about getting the right books into the hands of the kids, like, it's such a gift. So, yeah, anyway, I found what I could, and the other aspect of this is that I was a very imaginative but frightened kid, so sometime
Hmm.
around age 9 or 10, I got it into my head that, amusement parks probably were just allowed to kill children.
Whoa. Okay.
I thought maybe every 10th or 20th kid just got yeeted off of the roller coaster or fell off the net into the water or flipped off of a slide, and they just, like, scooped him out with the net and threw him in back. Nobody well, I'd never known any kids who had died, so I figured that if they like, if kids died, it just
They
wasn't a big
disguised it.
deal. Yeah, so I would go to Six Flags and be like, "They're not gonna get me."
My
And be,
God.
like, looking around for, like, the guy with the net.
My
So I went
God.
to I went to Disney World for the first time in 10th grade, and we were riding the Maelstrom, which is the Frozen ride now. But I was like, we're riding in the dark where it's like the thing is bumping in the water, and I was like, "We're gonna die. We're gonna die." My mom was like, "No,
Yeah.
like, you were at Epcot. No one dies at Disney World." And then you get to the point where the ride comes to a stop, and then it gets jerked backward through the tunnel, and I started screaming, "I told you we're gonna die! I told you!" So, yeah, that's who I was as a kid, and that's where this book takes you.
I
My
love
God.
that.
I think I shared this like maybe Adam when we were first talking about doing this podcast. I don't think we actually recorded this, but I was saying how like older brothers get us into some crappy situations and how I was a very scared kid because of the things he would do. So we were at Universal Studios doing the stunt tour, but I'm like 8 and I don't know that, Delilah. Like I don't realize that they're like showing this thing. So the back of the thing starts shaking and he's like, "Get off, help, get off." And I'm climbing off the ride. And like, finally, my parents catch him and they're like, "What the hell are you doing?" But yeah, I could easily, if we were friends when we were younger, I would have been like, "Yeah, they hide bodies." Like, you would have talked me into it.
Yeah.
I would have believed you.
Yep.
And I'm still like, I'll do pretty much any roller coaster or whatever, but the water slides, like, I still think they're going to fly off the side. Like, I think like the physics, I don't know, just frightening. I do think there's still a net, okay? Now that that's what you've described, I'm gonna say I still think that.
Well, it was at Six Flags over Georgia in the Looney Tunes Kidland, and you had to, like, climb over this net that was over this pool of water, and I was just like, "This thing's about to drop at any second."
I feel like I was doing way too much. I feel like I drowned several times shooting out of those water slides, and
Mhm.
wasn't like a
Yep.
strong enough swimmer sort of thing, and I feel like they just didn't care, but now there's, like, all these rules and
Oh,
regulations.
yeah, they would just stand at the bottom and watch you struggling to try to get
Yeah,
out.
I
Like
it's like, "You're fine. It'll be
yeah.
fine." Yeah. Also, I feel that way about fairs. Like,
Oh,
I'm very
oh.
convinced that because all the rides get packed out of, like, a suitcase,
Mhm.
like, that's definitely gonna happen.
No, I've seen a couple videos of things actually going wrong at fairs, and,
Yeah.
like, I don't wanna go to fairs anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I grew up in Washington, DC, and we did not have fairs or carnivals. So the first time I'm watching, like, carnival rides go down the highway and then them snapping them together like Legos, I'm like, "No, absolutely not. I'm not gonna ride that now." I wanted to say, like, I loved roller coasters. I still love the idea of them most of the time. One thing that's always scared me is the big swings, and I must say, after reading Ride or Die, they scare me even more, so good job for that
Yay!
because that sequence, I was like, you know, for middle gr in I love middle grade, I read a lot of middle grade horror, and I've always said, I think middle grade horror makes the scariest books because they can't gross you out, as much and, all those kinds of things, and, like, that was just tapped into such a primal fear of, those swings not working the way that they should that, really got me, like, during that sequence, and I was like I almost had to put it down to say, like, "It's not real, it's not happening, that's wouldn't happen if you're on it," so that was awesome.
Sorry, not sorry.
Were you just going through, as you're writing a book like that, are you going through all the sort of typical rides and saying, "What scary thing can I do on each one?"
Oh, yeah, I mean, I was thinking about the Six Flags, as I recall, from
Yeah,
my childhood and all the things about it that kinda terrified me.
I love that.
Mm. Did you?
And I did actually draw the map for that book. It's my first map that I drew for my own
Oh, I
book.
love
Oh,
a map.
so the only time I can really think about that my brain would go kind of where yours is going is I don't get scared at like the Halloween places, like where they're just like, "Oh, come to the, walk the cornfield or, have the chainsaw guy chase after you and stuff." But it does bother me when I think, what if some sicko decided that he or she was going to join this? And I think it's fake, but it's not really fake. And they actually really do get away to like try to like kill me and then that gets into my head. And then I am scared.
No, I have a really hard time going to, movies for this reason.
She has a hard
You
time going to
know,
where?
Movies.
Movies.
like movie
Oh,
theaters.
because of
I
that
have
original shooting.
Yeah, because of the thought that anybody behind me could do anything that they wanted to, and I would have no way to know. And then at the same time, anybody could walk into any of the other doors and do pretty much anything they wanted to
Yeah.
do.
Yeah,
And I'm just trapped there.
Yeah, I feel like after that act of terrorism happened, I there's never a time I don't go to the movies and not think about it.
yeah. I would say the one thing that's good for me anyway, because I have the same thing of I need to know my exits. I need to know like that's anywhere that I go. That's just having terrible anxiety or whatever, that's the life you lead. But like I think in movie theaters, once they started doing at least where we're at, the sort of much more stadium tiered seating, like helped me because
I always pick the very back row.
well, not just that, but like no one's on the same level. So it's like you can't reach out and touch the person in front of you like you could, in theaters growing up and stuff like that. And I think that always really freaked me out that there was people with such close access to you that you don't see and sometimes even know that they're there.
I've heard of people being upset that your head touches the back where someone else's head is at, and they bring like Lysol wipes to like wipe down the head.
Well, as a teacher, I'm exposed to how many germs every day. I got to get over that.
Man, any other places that you feel like you prepare yourself for, or you're thinking about weird things?
I mean, at literally every place I go,
I'm
I'm
like, I
having
feel
weird
like
thoughts. I
you're
mean, my brain is wired for catastrophe and to think
love
about
it.
literally everything bad that could happen, which is good that I started writing books because I used to just kind of lay awake at night contemplating all the horrible things that could happen. And now I kind of use that engine to
My
torture
God.
people who don't exist. It's a much better use of my time.
We got this
And
annotated
torture your
yeah,
readers.
we got this annotated copy of So Thirsty from Rachel Harrison. And she's like, I'm just always thinking about death. I'm always thinking about malls and death. And it's like plays into it. So I'm like, to hear you say that, it's like, okay, so it's just that morbid or it just follows you. Cause you sound like you're just a very curious person and wondering how if you read this article on BuzzFeed about the yachts and you see this, like, do you ever have any time like trouble culling through your ideas of what actually is gonna like turn into a book? Or like do you have this like zing moment of like, oh yeah, that's it?
I mean, there's a difference between the zing moment of there's a book in that idea and then like, oh, that will be a scene in a book one day. So when I'm
Okay.
actually working on a first draft, I'm kind of in that world constantly. My family calls it book world. And that's the period of time where like if you say to me, "Hey, can I have dinner in 10 minutes?" You know that if you don't come tell me that you need dinner in 10 minutes, I will forget and you will starve to death.
Okay.
So yeah, each book that I'm working on, I don't necessarily know everything that's going to happen, but I have scenes in my head. So like when I was writing that book, it's almost like I had a little list at the end of the document that would be like, Highland Swings, Reptile House, each of the scenes that you saw, and I'm sure there were some that didn't make it because I love carousels. Like I have a carousel horse in my house, and I also love to really scare people with carousels. So I
Yeah.
know there was like a carousel scene that I was like, I'd rather use this for something else. But yeah, it's really fun actually. I like when I'm writing and I know, what needs to emotionally happen in the next scene, but then I get the idea for what to actually do there, especially in a horror book that's, is a series of terrible events. It's really fun. I'm like, oh yes, it's exactly the time to torture people in that way.
But I was interested seeing some of your posts, especially from the past couple weeks, at Dragon Con and these different things, and you saying like you're just kind of posting and sitting, in the hotel room and stuff like that. That it's like I look at that and that idea of that terrifies me. And I know you're going to meet fans and that kind of stuff, but what's it like to put yourself out there in something like that?
Like at a con, you mean?
Yeah, in a con and just kind of being in a place that like maybe you don't know anyone there as well. And, all that kind of stuff. It seems, it's a part of the job, obviously, but it seems like it could create like anxiety, but also like excitement. Like, how do you feel about those events?
Well, first of all, I don't tend to go to a con if I'm not going to know anybody. The big cons, San Diego, New York, and Dragon Con, I know a lot of people. And then I recently went to Bubonicon, and that was I wanted to see Diana Roland and Daniel Abraham and Jeffy Kennedy, and I wanted to go to Meow Wolf. Last year, I went to Armadillo Con in Austin because I wanted to see a couple of friends from high school and my friend
That's
Robert
cool.
Cargill. So it's like I like to go to cons where I'm going to know people.
Huh?
Because I am one of those people who didn't have friends until like my 30s, and I
Yeah.
still just assume my friends are doing me a pity favor. So when I have friends who want to see me, I'm very excited about that. But there's also something to be said for the anonymity for a very big con. Something like Dragon Con or San Diego or New York, I'm just one little fish out of 80,000, and I can swim through, the seas of people and not owe anyone anything. And it's a very pleasant thing. Like as long as I am at the panels they've asked me to be at, the time in between is my own. And there's no sense of, you know, people would like me to be in the bar and available, or people would like me to be hanging out and available. I can just disappear to my room and chill.
Yeah, are you one that, cuz we went to StokerCon for the first time this year, and the sort of like social battery getting run out, it really is like wonderful to be able to have that time to just kind of go back and sit, and as someone that's not participating in anything like panels and stuff like that, it's easy to do that.
Oh, I wouldn't know what to do if I didn't have panels. I need a
Yeah,
job. I could not go to a con as an attendee. I would just sit there being like, what do? Can I cut cheese for someone? Can I paint something? Do I need to clean? Like, give me a job.
that's so funny. I love that. But yeah, that's really cool. And you know, kind of thinking about the fact that you live in, very different genre worlds, and I wonder, like, Star Wars fans, Dungeons and Dragons fans, those kinds of things, like when they see you at a con and things like that, is it very like cordoned off for like what people know you for? Or do you find like if someone's a fan, they're a fan of everything you do? Like, how does that work normally?
It just depends how they found me
Huh?
and if they've broadened, the Star Wars fans are probably the most narrow demographic in that, lots of them are just there for the Star Wars, and that is totally fine. I'm super happy to see them and talk Star Wars with them because, like, I love it just as much as you do. I've got some really incredible fans that have been following me since my first series, which is just, it's an incredible gift because I know that I jump genres and that I don't have a brand. And when you buy one of my books, you don't know if it's going to be a sweet, cozy mountain romance or a horrible, terrifying murder island or a Weird West monster hunt or a uh, bounty hunter thriller. Like, you just don't know. So I appreciate the people that, can make that journey. And I appreciate every new person who picks up a book. And like, if you only read my middle grade horror, that's fine. If you only read my Minecraft, that's fine. Like, basically, whatever you're reading is still a book that I put multiple months of my life and my heart and my soul into, and I appreciate that, and I'm more than happy to talk about it.
That's awesome. Um, One thing we were talking a couple of weeks ago, or a week ago, it's hard to remember sometimes, to sorry, I'll start over here. We were talking to Ali Malinenko, and we were kind of talking about marketing, and especially how, as a middle grade author, it can be very hard to get your books out there because obviously you don't always have access to your direct readership. A lot of times you're talking to librarians, parents, that kind of stuff. And then how, just the biggest names still have to kind of market themselves so much and do some of that themselves too. And I happened to see a post of yours where you're saying, hey, if anyone wants to have an event for House of Idol, like, let me know. And it's just interesting. I just wanted to hear your thoughts on how an author can't just be someone that holds up and writes and sends stuff out anymore, how you have to be so much of that other end of the process too, of getting your books into readers' hands.
I guess my first book came out in 2012, and the landscape of social media was vastly different then. When you shared a post was given to all of your readers. Everyone who had said, "Yes, I'll click this button and follow you," had the opportunity to see that post. So I had 60,000 followers on Twitter, and when I said, "Hey, here's a book to buy," it would get 80 or 100 or more retweets, and people would go buy the book, and it was this beautiful system.
Mhm.
Now, if I have 16,000 followers on Threads and I put a post, it's shown to about 17 of them. like
God.
less than 1%. Instagram, I have 11,000 followers and it shows it to about 700 people. So unless you are paying for advertising, social media is not a good way to get the word out. So I've kind of given my over the years I've realized that there's not much I personally can do to move the needle other than keep writing books and getting out there and hoping that one of them makes it out of orbit. But to do that, it either needs a lot of money put in from the publisher or it needs a special amount of luck that I can't make happen on my own. It needs to, have a TikTok go viral or a Biggless Dickless moment or get picked up as a movie or, taken up in an airport by Michelle Obama. All of these things. Every book I write gives me one more chance to do that, but that's as far as I can go in that process. So I have to really focus on just loving the work and keep putting it out there. And anytime that I get a chance to be in front of an audience, whether it's at a con or a school visit, if I can, I take that, but I also don't beat myself up too badly because I know how hard I work and I know how little my impact makes of self promotion. So just kind of have to keep throwing darts at the dartboard.
Yeah. So what? But obviously, you have large follower accounts on those, and you still do the posts and things like that. So is it really just like I'm gonna spread it everywhere I can and just hope for the best, kind of thing?
It really depends on the time and the energy that I have in the moment. I definitely am not around social media just to have chats as
Hmm.
much as I used to be. People have gotten there's a lot of audacity these days. You
I
can
was
just say
gonna.
something like, "I like
You're
apples,"
yeah.
and 40 guys will line up to be like,
Yeah.
"Apples killed my mother, go to hell."
Well, I
So,
really wanted to talk about your Threads post today because that really cracked me up when you're talking about the audacity of sort of emails that you're getting and the that kind of thing. And so obviously social media has never exactly been a non-toxic place, but are you noticing it getting more, not just, and I think that like it can happen at events and stuff too, and I've talked about it before, is like the assumption of access because you see that person's name and they've said something.
most people who are excited to see me, I can meet that excitement pretty well. Like, that's a gift if somebody knows who you are, and I know how hard it is to approach someone that I still get weird approaching authors whose work I admire,
Yeah.
and I sit there being like, "Do I seem like a crazy person? Is there stuff in my teeth? Do they hate me? Should I do this? Oh my god." Like, I do that too, like, totally normal. But I guess that thread or Skeet in particular, I took my email off the internet because I just got a lot of spam and a lot of people would like to have a relationship that I cannot manage. I'm kind of terrified of emails. They kind of imply that we could just go on talking forever, which is not a way that I work well. So I ask people, I tell people I am available on social media. If you talk to me, if you ask an ungoogleable question, I'll in general answer it, as well as I can. Enthusiasm, but that's how I make myself available. The audacity I'm seeing is in the way that emails are being stolen, shared, and then automated.
Mm.
People who I did not give my email to and who I can't fathom where they got it from are sending me clearly AI generated emails, or, basically it's like the new, Nigerian prince scammer
Mhm.
where they send it out to 1 million people just to find one person dumb enough to answer back. These emails are awful. They shove them into ChatGPT, which I'm a huge enemy of. And it comes out in this kind of like naggingly playful, personal, insulting, but helpful way where they're like, "Delilah, did you just make me cry? That was so wrong of you. That book reached into my heart and pulped it out. But you know what's really insulting is how few people have read it. Oh my gosh, only 8 reviews on Amazon? You must cry yourself to sleep. Let's change that." And it's like, buddy, everything you just said is dumb and I hate you. I wouldn't give you a single dollar, even if you'd written this yourself. So yeah, that's the audacity. And also, and I think somebody on LinkedIn is maybe urging people to demand a follow up and keep
Mhm.
hitting them and don't let them get away. So I keep getting double and triple emails that I don't think a human being wrote that are like, "I noticed you have not responded to my query." And it's like, yeah, because it ain't real.
Or even if it is, it's like because I didn't want to respond.
Yeah, I don't talk to people that are rude to me
Yeah.
in general.
Oh man. No, that is definitely interesting. And I love like the image that you have of like, the bro podcaster saying, "Don't take no for an answer. Just keep going."
I was gonna say, I feel like
No,
they,
definitely take no for an answer.
yeah. No, they have like I remember early on when I got into like selling, one of the things was like calling, like tell them where like their baby's ugly. So it would
Mm,
be like, oh, you have so few reviews, and like you point that out, and it's like, but we can help you with that. And it's like you run the risk of offending them, but it's like, but it might work too,
yeah,
and it,
just a horrible way to go about
it's a hell of a
business.
tactic.
Especially, I don't know, it's one thing to maybe talk about like a business when you're maybe doing plumbing or something like that, but something so deeply personal,
Yeah, that's
mm,
very
I
different.
think like they don't quite they're not understanding what it is that they're doing, right?
Quite a difference because art is subjective. I mean, even when
Mhm.
you're on Goodreads, you can be like, this was the best book I've ever read, and you find someone who's like, I didn't get it, I DNF'd
Yeah.
it, it's a 1. I'm like, okay.
Well, this is a lot more impersonal than that. I don't believe any of these people have read
Yeah,
my
or
books.
actually exists.
So what are you reading right now?
Oh my gosh, I am reading a book to blurb. Let's see. Shoot, it's downstairs. May the Dead Keep You by Jill Bagachinsky.
Mm,
It's got a gorgeous cover with a pileated woodpecker on it that I'm really liking. I just finished the next Drist book by R.A. Salvatore, The Finest Edge of Twilight, which is
Yeah.
about Drist's daughter Breezy. And I just bought Nat Cassidy's When the Wolf Comes Home
nice.
and C.B. Lee's Coffee Shop in an Alternate Universe.
Oh,
Yeah.
So that's kind of all the things on my. Oh, and I'm listening to the audiobook of Horror Store by Grady Hendrix. So
nice.
I it's like I have a I have a paperback book that I read when I'm eating lunch or taking a bath or whatever, and then I have an audiobook I listen to on my walks,
Yep,
and then I have an ebook that I read on the plane. So I'm
yep.
always got things going.
That's
I
me.
love
I'm
that.
always rotating. I always have like 4 or 5 books going at one time. I have my bedside book, my Kindle book, audiobook. Yeah, my downstairs book.
I do love that Horror Store audiobook, especially the way that they've done the sort of advertisements with Bronson Pinchot in between like the
Yeah, I was
chapters.
wondering how that was going to work, but it
Yeah.
really does.
Yeah, very
That's the
cool.
one that looks like the IKEA.
That's the
Because our
pseudo
12-year-old
IKEA.
takes that one
Yes.
to school.
Yeah.
I'm like, it is like, okay.
She looked at the covers of Grady Hendrix's books and decided she's a Grady Hendrix fan, which I love. So she
Yeah,
just
get
was
it.
like,
But she doesn't read them. She just takes them
it
to and
just looks
from.
cool to have, that's always the first start, right?
It is
To
true.
be seen with the book and then eventually you'll open it up.
Yeah, well, that's how I felt with Delilah's book. I was like, oh, look at this beautiful cover
Well,
art.
yeah, you definitely have some great cover art for your books.
How much do you like have input on that?
It depends on the book and the publisher and our relationship. I would say I've had the most input on the Titan novellas.
Mhm.
Okay.
I had an idea for the cover of Bloom, and I'm a visual artist, so I created a collage
Wow.
and I put it on my Instagram and said, "Hey, if I could do my own cover, this is what I would do." And then I tagged my editor in it, and she liked it and said, "Well, send me the art." And their
Wow.
artist Julia Lloyd took my piece and made it 100 times better, but it was kind of based on the skeleton of the piece I did. And then
Mm-hmm.
House of Idyll, I was invited to a French Star Wars convention and I started the journey in London. And so I got to go to Titan and meet my publishing team there and Julia, and we talked about the cover for House of Idyll. She also designed the interiors with the liner notes. That was pretty cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And then for something like Ride or Die, they choose an artist and ask me if that artist is okay. And I say, of course, you can do whatever you want. And then they send me, 6 sketches and say, what do you like? And I tell them, and then we kind of
Narrow it
work from
down.
there. Yeah, but that artist is Matt Ryan Tobin, who did Camp Scare, and Ride or Die he's an
I love
incredible
the cover of
artist.
that book. I mean, it just draws you in just by the colors and sitting at the top of like
Hmm.
about to go down the right. I mean, it's just,
Yeah, it's
It's
very
so 80s.
evocative.
Absolutely love it.
I'm like,
Oh,
I don't even care if it's like not an adult book. Like, I was like, I'm immediately reading this. And then we had the arc. It just looks so good. But I love
I
like the
appreciate that.
texture on like, I feel like Bloom doesn't have the same texture as like Guillotine almost has like that. I don't want to say a velvet, but like a
it's like
softer
a
matte. Like, I
yeah.
don't know. It just
Yeah,
feels good to
I had
hold it.
proposed for that. They were doing a trio of novellas at the time, and I had proposed that each one have kind of a similar flavor. And I thought that Guillotine should have like all pink marble with a white marble statue splattered in blood and a chunk missing, and kind of
Mm-hmm.
like rose petals and pearls everywhere. And ultimately, they didn't go with that, and I'm kind of sad
That
about
sounds
it. But
beautiful though.
Apparently they tried and it didn't work, but
I
and
would
then
have
of
still
course for something like Star Wars or Ravenloft, it just shows up and I go, "Yep,
Yeah,
there it
yeah.
is."
right.
Yeah, our the grim dark dad, he said he read my like one of the people I like to talk to on Instagram, he reads all of your Star Wars stuff.
Hmm.
He's
I
just
appreciate that.
yeah, he's like, I'm just like a Star Wars nut. And I was like, okay, well maybe I'll try. And he's like, well, Star Wars is a little difficult. I'm like, this is fair. I've only watched
Well,
the
to
series.
be real clear, I try to write books in Star Wars and all my IP that act as a door, instead of a gate. So,
Oh,
if you wanted to read Rise of the Red Blade, as long as you're vaguely familiar with the Clone Wars
okay.
or, have seen Revenge of the I'd say it was Attack of the Clones, Revenge of the Sith. Like if you've seen
Yeah.
those movies, you'll be perfectly at home. It's not one of those you must have been reading
Okay.
Legends for 300 years to understand it. Just like Phasma, all you have to do is have seen The Force Awakens and that book will make sense.
I'm excited because I was saying, like, funnily enough, I remember my parents like watching Star Wars when I was a kid, and I remember like them like riding around on like the little white motorcycles in the air, but so I don't want to say like I've never like seen like my eyeballs literally saw the screen for it, but it wasn't until I want to say 2023
Hmm.
that we went to um in Disney World. We went and did all the Star Wars rides,
Right.
and I still hadn't seen any of the movies, Delilah. But after writing everything, I was like, "This is amazing! Like I want to watch them." So I didn't know anything. So Adam's like, "I'm not going to show it to you in like movie release date. I'm going to show it to you in like chronological order." Um, so I'm just like, we're watching like a movie a night, and I was like, "God, I just keep thinking about Anakin."
She's definitely on the Anakin was right side over
No, and I'm
here.
like, and their
Okay,
love
if you're on Anakin was right, you'll like Rise of the Red Blade.
And
Okay.
I was like, in the love story.
Hmm.
And he was like, wait, you don't know what's going to happen? I was like, what are you talking about? Like, and he's like, oh my God. Like, okay. And I did not know. I had
Yeah,
no one had ever spoiled it for me. I never knew.
it was pure. It was pure and wonderful to see.
I did not know who was who and what was
Hmm.
what. And I didn't know how that guy got turned into like the charred bagels
or, or
uncle or whatever.
yes.
But it
Uncle
just,
Owen, rip.
yeah, uncle. Yeah. And so no, I would really like to try that because I like everything that I've read of yours, and I just feel like I'd like to try some of that. Sometimes I love fantasy. I was saying to my friend, I was like, I love Lord of the Rings, and I love Bridge to Terabithia was kind of something, and Narnia, and so anything that like and Marvel. I just can't read any of those romance books where it's like the majority of the time is how much they're going to sleep together and like dragons and I've tried. It doesn't work for me. Like it's not what I'm looking for. So I feel like looking at some of this of what you're making sounds like that could be a lot of
Yeah.
fun to read.
Expanding into those
Uh-huh.
worlds. Yeah.
Right.
Well, I mean, any IP book I do is still going to be a very Delilah S. Dawson book.
Well, that's what we're looking for.
Yeah,
So
that's
I
what I
love
want.
it. So definitely.
I mean,
So
I'm not saying it can't have like with sex in it. I'm just saying I don't want the whole thing to be about dragons and fornication and dragons and fornication. And
and
for
sometimes
anybody,
dragons fornicating. Yes.
yeah, and if that's what people like, that's okay. It's just that's not what I'm looking for. So is that what you're writing? Dragons and fornication?
Not me, no.
Then I'll read it.
Okay. Well, wonderful. Ride or Die is out now. Anyone that has a middle grade reader in their life, but then also anyone that just likes good horror should be reading it right now.
Yeah, I'm gonna read. I'm
Um,
reading it. Like I don't care.
September 9th, House of Idyll is out, and you have a bunch of events coming. I was excited to see we're in Pennsylvania, so that you'll be with Chuck at the Doylestown Bookshop is very
Woohoo!
cool.
Love Doylestown Bookshop.
Such a great place. I love Peg. And then you have a bunch of other events that you'll be doing. So, where can we find you? Is there anything else in the horizon that we should be looking for?
Well, I'm Delilah S. Dawson anywhere I'm going to be online. So that's currently my website, Instagram, Threads, and Blue Sky. And like I said, if anybody has a question or wants to chat, like I'm in those places, and that's where I'm available to people. I do have several events coming up, including next week events in Doylestown, Pennsylvania, and Brooklyn, New York, at the New Twisted Spine.
Yeah.
In October, I have multi-author horror events at Tomorrow Bookstore in Indianapolis and at Gibson's Bookstore in Concord, New Hampshire. I'll be at New York Comic Con. I will be at Twin Cities Con in Minneapolis. I think that might be it for the year. And then after House of Idyll, I still have one more book this year, which is Thor and Loki Epic Tales from Marvel Mythology.
Oh, say
Yes.
less. I need that for my will it be out before Christmas?
Yeah, it says September 16th. So that's basically Thor and Loki are retelling Norse mythology in their bardic voices to the Avengers, mixed in with a couple of famous Marvel Thor and Loki stories, also told as if they were myths.
I need that for my Christmas
Amazing. That
stocking,
sounds
please.
amazing. I love that.
And it's a beautiful book. Like the paper is like so thick and creamy, and it's got beautiful
Yes.
illustrations by Gabrielle H. Walta.
Oh, I'm so
Cool.
excited.
That's amazing. All right. So thank you so much for talking and look forward to all of those and just really appreciate you giving us our time.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me, and thank you so much for reading and spreading the word with the kids. It really means a lot because I can't reach kids, but you can, and God
Yes.
bless you for connecting them with books.
He'll continue
Well,
pushing
thank you.
books.
Oh, yeah. You're always at top of the list.
For sure.
Thank you.
Thank y'all.
Yep.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.